In my last two videos, I talked a lot about the different planes of existence in Dungeons & Dragons, but I never actually explained how those planes connect, overlap, or fit into the structure of the multiverse. So today, we're fixing that. We're going to break down the entire D&D cosmology, the outer planes, the inner planes, the material realm, the Feywild, the Shadowfell, and the cosmic highways that bind them all together, the astral plane. There's a lot to cover in this video, so let's dive straight in. Let's begin with the plane that matters most in any game of Dungeons & Dragons, the material plane, also known as the Prime by those who don't live there. This is the realm where every D&D story unfolds, whether it's the campaign you're running at your nan's kitchen table or the sweeping epics of Critical Role and Dimension 20, they all take place within the material realm. In 5th edition cosmology, the material plane is one plane, but it contains countless worlds, each with its own history, continents, gods and stories. Every time a new group starts a D&D campaign, that world they create becomes yet another corner of the material plane. All of these worlds, Faerun, Exandria, Oearth, your homebrew realm, my homebrew world, all float together within a vast expanse known as the Astral Sea. The Astral Sea, or Astral Plane, isn't a place in any normal sense. It has no land, no sky, no gravity, just an endless silver void stretching in every direction. Time barely moves here. You don't age, you don't need food or water, and even movement works differently. You drift through the astral not by walking or flying but by thought alone, where your mind points, your body follows. Scattered throughout this shimmering expanse are strange, drifting islands. Broken chunks of dead worlds, ruined temples, abandoned spell-jamming ships, and even the petrified corpses of forgotten gods. Portals known as colour pools dot the void leading to other planes, while the domains of gods and Githyanki fortresses float through its endless expanse. There's no up or down. No map to follow, only the silver haze and the sense that you're moving through the space between all spaces, the connective tissue of reality itself. The astral plane is essentially the cosmic highway of the multiverse, the route that connects the material plane to the great outer planes. Whether you're travelling to Celestia, Hades, the Abyss, Limbo, or any other outer realm, you reach it by navigating the silver expanse of the Astral Sea. The only major exceptions are the inner planes, which follow a different set of pathways entirely, but we'll get to those shortly. So, what exactly are the outer planes? In the Great Wheel Cosmology, the model 5th edition uses, the outer planes are the vast, distant realms that sit at the very edge of the multiverse. They're not reflections of the material plane, and they're not elemental building blocks like the inner planes. Instead, the outer planes are realms shaped entirely by belief, philosophy, and alignment. Mount Celestia, the Abyss, the Nine Hells, Mechanus, Arborea, these places aren't just locations. They're physical expressions of cosmic ideals, law, chaos, good, evil, and everything in between. A soul doesn't go to the outer planes because of where it lived, but because of what it believed in. The plane that matches its moral or philosophical nature. These planes sit like the outermost ring of the Great Wheel, and they're usually reached through the astral plane. Think of them as the ultimate destinations of gods, celestials, fiends, and the afterlives tied to divine belief. If the material plane is where mortals live their lives, the outer planes are where the consequences of those lives play out on a cosmic scale. Each one is massive, unique, and shaped not by physics but by ideology, meaning a plane like Limbo will behave with pure, shifting chaos, while a plane like Mechanus marches in perfect mathematical order. These are the extreme ends of the multiverse. Now, since this video is an overview of the entire D&D cosmology, it would be a disservice not to at least touch on the defining traits of each plane. So this part's going to move pretty quickly, so strap in. Mount Celestia is a 7-tiered mountain of law and goodness where souls ascend towards enlightenment. Bitopia is a pair of mirrored worlds defined by cooperation, honest labour and community. Elysium is a peaceful paradise where conflicts fades and serenity reigns. The Beastlands is untamed nature incarnate, where animals speak and civilization has no hold. Arborea is a realm of passion, beauty and unrestrained joy, home to the elven gods. Ysgard is an eternal battlefield of heroic combat, feasting and rebirth. Limbo is pure chaos, where reality shifts constantly and only willpower brings order. Pandemonium is a howling maze of tunnels that erode sanity and reason. The Abyss is an infinite pit of demonic realms, each more horrific than the last. Sorcery, something like that, is a decaying prison plane where betrayal is common and escape is rare. Hades is the Grey Wastes, a realm of apathy, despair and emotional decay. Gehenna is a harsh volcanic world driven by ruthless ambition and survival. The Nine Hells is a rigid infernal hierarchy of tyranny, contracts and calculated evil. Acheron is an endless war zone of colliding metal cubes and disciplined conflict. Mechanus is a perfect clockwork plane of absolute law and order. Arcadia is a lawful utopia where order and goodness exist in harmony. That's the outer planes for you. If you're interested in any of those specifically, please do say in the comments. I do plan on making a video for each and every plane eventually, but I also actually just lied to you. That was not all of the outer planes, because there is also the Outlands in the middle, cosmologically speaking anyway. As you may have noticed, each plane is tied to a specific alignment. Along the bottom, you've got the lower planes for planes of evil, like the Nine Hells, Gehenna, Hades, Circe and the Abyss. Along the top, you've got the planes of good, the upper planes, Arcadia, Mount Celestia, Bytopia, Elysium, the Beastlands, Arborea, Eastgard. Then on the left hand side, you've got the planes of law. Specifically, this is Mechanus, but then the planes that are closest to this part of the Great Wheel, like Arcadia and Acheron, are more lawful in nature. And then on the right side, you've got the planes of chaos. Specifically, this is Limbo, but then again, the same. The planes that are closest to this, such as Pandemonium and Ysgard, are more chaotic in nature. The only alignment not claimed by any of those planes is true neutral, because that role belongs entirely to the Outlands, the one plane that stands apart from the rest as the neutral heart of the multiverse. So neutral actually, so mind-bogglingly neutral, that at the centre of the plane, magic doesn't work, chemical reactions cease to occur, and even gods lose their powers. Yeah, crazy shit. In fact, this is only within 100 miles of the centre. No being can actually even reach the centre of the plane. Again, not even gods. It's a wacky place, for sure. Then there's the city of Sigil wrapped up in all of this, which can often confuse matters even more. For starters, official art and lore depicts the torus-shaped city of Sigil as floating above the spire that sits at the very centre of the Outlands. This, however, is not the case. Even though you could wake up each morning in a different gate town of the Outlands and gaze upon the spire and see with your own eyes the city of Sigil floating just above it, the city of Sigil is in an entirely different demi-plane of existence. You can just stand at the bottom of the spire and look up at it, seemingly above your heads at the top of the spire. And though you can look up at it and it can seem a certain distance away, you can't travel to it via conventional methods. You can't climb the spire and eventually reach the city of Sigil. Only through portals is the city accessed. It is called the City of Doors, after all. So far we've been looking outward, at the great ideological extremes of the multiverse. The outer planes are shaped by belief, alignment and philosophy, where reality bends to ideas rather than physical law, but not every plane exists to embody a concept. Beneath the ideals and beyond the heavens and hells lie the inner planes, realms not defined by morality or belief but by the raw elements that make up existence itself. If the outer planes represent why the multiverse is the way it is, the inner planes represent what it's made of. The material plane is home to all things familiar. People and monsters, cities and civilizations, stories and legends. It's the stage where lives are lived and adventures unfold. But clinging to that reality is a darker echo, a warped reflection that twists everything the material plane represents and turns it inward upon itself. This is the Shadowfell. The Shadowfell mirrors the material plane but drains it of warmth, colour and hope. Familiar landscapes appear dull and lifeless. Cities crumble into ruins and even emotions feel muted and heavy. Time seems to drag, despair settles easily, and many who linger too long find their will slowly slipping away. It is a realm shaped by death, loss and entropy, home to undead, shadowy creatures and beings drawn to sorrow and decay. While it is not inherently evil, the Shadowfell is suffocating, a place where optimism withers and survival often depends as much on strength of spirit as strength of arms. But where the Shadowfell is a reflection steeped in decay and despair, it is not the only echo of the material plane. On the opposite end of the spectrum lies a realm just as distorted, but in the other direction. Where the Shadowfell drains life and emotion, the Feywild amplifies them. It is the material plane reflected through excess rather than absence, a world of heightened colour, raw magic and untamed emotion, home to Fey creatures, arch-Fey and ancient spirits of nature. The Feywild operates by its own rules. Joy, anger, love and sorrow all leave tangible marks on the land, and travellers often find themselves swept up in stories larger than they intended. Where the Shadowfell tests one's endurance against despair, the Feywild tests restraint, because in a realm of endless magic and emotion, excess can be just as deadly as decay. Beyond the Feywild, Shadowfell and the material realm lie the elemental planes. Realms not shaped by emotion or belief, but by the fundamental forces that make up reality itself. These are the elemental foundations of the multiverse, the raw materials from which the material plane was formed. Within the elemental planes, existence is stripped down to its most basic components. The plane of Earth is exactly what it sounds like, an endless stretch of solid rock, packed so tightly that space itself feels like a luxury. It's a world of tunnels, caverns and slow grinding movement, where the ground is constantly shifting and earthquakes are just part of the scenery. Light is rare, air comes in pockets, and if you're not careful, the plane will quite literally close in around you. That said, it's not completely empty. Hidden within all that stone are massive deposits of gems, metals and minerals, along with settlements carved out by the creatures that inhabit this plane. It's a harsh place, sure, but if you know where to dig and how to survive, the plane of Earth has more riches than almost anywhere in the multiverse. The plane of water is an endless ocean with no surface and no seafloor, just water in every direction, stretching on forever. There's no sun overhead, but the water itself gives off a faint, eerie glow, just enough to see by. Currents replace weather here, constantly shifting the environment, and depending on where you drift, the water can turn icy cold, thick with silt, or even begin to boil as you pass near the other elemental realms. Life thrives in this vast sea, from drifting reefs of coral and kelp to enormous predators lurking where food is plentiful. Entire settlements cling to currents, portals or stable regions where survival is easier, but danger is never far away. Powerful tides, whirlpools and invisible flows that can carry travellers miles off course in moments. And if you're not paying attention, the plane of water has a nasty habit of reminding you just how small you really are. The plane of air is an endless sky with no ground beneath your feet, just open space, drifting clouds and constant motion. Most of it is filled with clean, breathable air, but pockets of fog, storm clouds, smoke and strange vapours form and dissolve as the winds shift. Solid ground does exist, but it's rare. Floating chunks of stone, drifting islands or massive clouds dense enough to build on, often anchored by powerful magic or clever inhabitants. Wind is the real force that defines this plane. Gentle breezes can turn into roaring gales without warning, and storms here are on an entirely different scale. Lightning storms that stretch for miles, raging hurricanes and colossal whirlwinds that can last for years. On a calm day, the plane of air is breathtakingly beautiful, all blue skies and endless horizons, but when the weather turns, it becomes one of the most dangerous places in the multiverse, where survival depends entirely on staying aloft and out of the storm's path. Lastly, the plane of fire is heat and destruction taken to the extreme. Stepping into it without serious protection is basically a death sentence. The air itself burns, smoke chokes your lungs and everything around you is either on fire, melting, or about to be on fire and melting. Unlike the other elemental planes, this one actually has a kind of landscape. Rivers of magma, seas of liquid flame, and ground that feels less like solid earth and more like wading through red hot coals. Fire here isn't static, it moves. ash storms roll across the plain, superheated winds scald exposed skin, and molten rivers spill over cliffs in blazing firefalls. Visibility is limited through the heat haze of this plane, and even solid terrain slowly flows like magma beneath your feet. And yet, despite how hostile it is, the plane of fire isn't empty. Cities like the city of Brass exist amid the inferno, and the plane is filled with stunning, almost hypnotic beauty. Flames in every colour imaginable, swirling and dancing on a scale found nowhere else in the multiverse. Then, beyond the planes of fire, earth, water and air, at the very edges of the inner planes lies the elemental chaos, a violent collision of the four elements all crashing into one another at once. Here the elements lose their boundaries, blending into a constantly shifting landscape of storms, magma, stone and endless energy. Nothing stays stable for long, and entire regions can reshape themselves in moments. Once ruled by the primordial beings, the elemental chaos represents raw creation in its most unstable form. It's less a place of travel and more a reminder of what the multiverse looks like when the fundamental forces of reality are left completely unchecked. These planes are not reflections or afterlives, they are environments in their purest form, governed by physical extremes rather than morality or magic. They are alien, inhospitable, and awe-inspiring, reminding us that the multiverse is not only shaped by stories and beliefs, but by the elemental forces that make existence possible at all. There are also the elemental planes of ice, ash, magma, and ooze, which I think is a really funny plane of existence, the plane of ooze. But these are planes to save for another video, another day. Now, the very last area to cover, the energy planes, the raw extremes of life and death itself. The positive energy plane is a blinding, airless explosion of life force, where wounds heal instantly and vitality surges, right up until the point where too much life becomes lethal, causing bodies to overload and burst apart in radiant energy. Its opposite, the negative energy plane, is a suffocating void that devours warmth, light and life, draining everything it touches, driving it towards entropy and oblivion. Neither plane is meant for mortals to endure, and both serve as stark reminders that even the most fundamental forces of existence can be just as deadly in excess as they are in absence. Together, they mark the final boundaries of the multiverse, where creation and destruction are no longer balanced, but absolute. And that will wrap up this video on the entire cosmology of the Dungeons & Dragons universe. I've had to be brief with so much of what I've covered today, but trust me when I say there is so much interesting information I could get into about any single area I've covered today. If any one particular plane of existence caught your eye today, please do tell me. I'll bump it up on my list of videos to make, and I always like to see what people find the most interesting. But enough said. I really hope you've enjoyed. Any criticism, any feedback, please leave it down below in the comments. Your kind or mean words are always welcome. But until next time, guys, take care.